Back in 2015, not long after his humbling loss to Floyd Mayweather, Canelo was still licking his wounds, rebuilding his pride, and waiting for the right moment to remind the world who he was. That moment came in the form of James Kirkland, the self-proclaimed Mandingo Warrior. Kirkland was a beast with 28 knockouts in 33 wins and a reputation that stretched far beyond the ring. He was dangerous, unstable, and completely insane. In his mind, he wasn't just going to beat Canelo, he was going to destroy him. "I want him to smell my breath," Kirkland boasted before the fight. "If I haven't showered in 3 days, I want him to smell the must." The arrogance was suffocating. But when the bell rang, reality hit him harder than any punch he'd ever taken. Canelo didn't just fight that night, he hunted. He toyed with Kirkland like a lion playing with its prey, waiting for the perfect moment to pounce. Every punch Alvarez threw was a statement, every movement a reminder that he was a different breed. And when his right hand connected clean on Kirkland's jaw, the lights went out. The Mandingo Warrior crumbled, lifeless, to the canvas. The referee didn't even bother counting. The knockout was so violent, so devastating, that it was named the best of the year. The message was clear. Canelo Alvarez wasn't just back. He was the monster under every fighter's bed. But that monster had been forged in earlier wars. Back in 2009, when he was just 19, Canelo faced Leonardo Tyner, a brawler with street cred and a filthy mouth. Tyner thought he could intimidate the kid from Guadalajara, mocking him, taunting him, even daring him to shut his mouth. On fight night, the young Canelo charged forward like a raging bull, throwing punches with bad intentions. Tyner tried to cheat, to hurt him dirty, but it only enraged the future champion more. The ring turned into a storm of fists, sweat, and fury. And when the dust settled, it was the Mexican prodigy who stood tall, victorious by unanimous decision, having taught another fool a lesson in humility. Years later, in 2021, another man dared to test him. Billy Joe Saunders. A slick British fighter with a perfect record and an even bigger ego. Saunders called Canelo a little ginger, mocked his style, and predicted an easy win. But when the bell rang, the so-called Gypsy King found himself facing something far worse than he'd imagined. Canelo was relentless. Every jab, every hook, every step forward carried the weight of a nation. Saunders smirked, stuck his tongue out, and mocked him mid-fight. That was his last mistake. Moments later, Canelo landed a thunderous uppercut that shattered Saunders' orbital bone. The Brit didn't even make it out of his corner. He sat broken and defeated as Canelo raised the WBO belt high. Confidence had turned to agony, and arrogance had found its executioner. And yet, few dared to challenge Canelo like Sergey "Crusher" Kovalev did in 2019. The Russian Titan was a brutal machine, a light heavyweight champion who had crushed legends like Bernard Hopkins. He called Canelo too small, laughed at the idea of losing to him. But in boxing, size means nothing when you're facing a man like Alvarez. For the first half of the fight, Kovalev's reach kept him ahead. His jab snapped like a whip, his combinations sharp. But Canelo was patient. He absorbed, he adjusted, and when the opening came, he unleashed hell. A single right hand detonated on Kovalev's jaw, and the giant folded like a tower of glass. The crowd erupted. Canelo had just jumped 2 weight classes and destroyed one of the most feared men in the sport. Even undefeated champions weren't safe. In 2013, Austin Trout, a loud, confident fighter, called Canelo overrated, claiming he'd turn him all night and expose his flaws. But in the ring, his words turned to dust. Canelo's defense was impenetrable, his counters surgical. Every round tilted further toward domination until one brutal right hand sent Trout stumbling in a daze, performing an involuntary dance that sealed his fate. The Mexican Warrior had once again silenced a mouthy challenger the only way he knew how, with his fists. Then came Daniel Jacobs in 2019, a fighter who promised not just to beat Canelo but to hurt and embarrass him. Jacobs was slick, confident, and arrogant enough to play mind games before the fight. But when the bell rang, he realized he'd walked into something far beyond a boxing match. Canelo was sharp, precise, and cold as ice. His head movement was poetry, his counters venom. Jacobs swung wildly, hitting nothing but air as Alvarez smiled and fired back with laser-guided precision. Round after round, the Mexican picked him apart, forcing Jacobs to block with his face until the final bell. The judges didn't hesitate. Unanimous decision, Canelo. Another ego shattered. Another lesson learned. Through every battle, every insult, and every challenge, one truth remained unshaken. Saul Canelo Alvarez doesn't just fight for victory, he fights for honor. Every time someone mocks him, every time they question his heart or his size, he answers in blood and sweat. From the streets of Guadalajara to the bright lights of Las Vegas, he has built a legacy not through words but through destruction. His fists have written his story, and every man who doubted him has become a chapter in his legend. So when the next loudmouth steps up, thinking they can taunt the king and survive, history will remind them what happens when arrogance meets Canelo Alvarez. He doesn't argue. He doesn't shout. He simply walks into the ring and lets his fists do the talking. And when the bell rings, they all learn the same lesson. Never, ever mock the Mexican genius of the sweet science. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Canelo's most brutal lessons in the ring, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more epic stories from the world of boxing. Which knockout shocked you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and stay tuned, because this is just the beginning of uncovering the legends who turned arrogance into agony.